There's been a huge explosion in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. At least 10 people are known to have been killed. That death toll, though, is going to increase in the coming hours and days. Lebanese security officials say that blast was triggered by explosive material that was stored in a warehouse in the port area, which is at the heart of the city. The president has called an emergency meeting. The prime minister has called a national day of mourning for Wednesday. The head of the Lebanese Red Cross says that hundreds of people have been taken to hospital with blast injuries. Many are still trapped in their homes. The initial blast wave travelled kilometres away from the actual site of the blast, and homes, buildings were damaged, windows were blown out. People suffered cuts, bruises, glass injuries. The cause at this stage unclear, although, as we were saying just a few moments ago, Israel was quick to issue a statement denying any involvement. Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodder is live for us now outside the port in Beirut, where that explosion happened. And you've been witnessing, Zaina, since that explosion, some pretty chaotic scenes there.
Well, yes, Adrian, chaotic scenes outside Beirut port as ambulances arrive to evacuate the dead and the wounded. But we have since moved to one of the hospitals in the center of Beirut, the American University Hospital, where most of the injured have been taken. There are also requests on social media for people to donate blood, because really dozens and dozens of people were injured in this massive blast that shook the Lebanese capital. You mentioned explosive material at one of the warehouses. That is what the head of one of Lebanon's security agencies, Major General Abbas Ibrahim, announced approximately an hour ago. And now we are hearing from Lebanon's Interior Minister, Mohammed Fahmy. What he is saying is that highly explosive ammonium nitrate was stored in the port. And he says that the Lebanese people should ask customs about why it was there. So officials trying to really distance themselves on what this highly explosive material was doing at Beirut port that caused this massive blast that has taken the lives of at least 10 people. That is what we understand from Lebanese security sources, but dozens and dozens of people have been injured. Some hospitals have started to turn away patients. The healthcare system in Lebanon is under a lot of pressure, not just because of an economic crisis, but because of an upsurge in the number of coronavirus cases. This is a government which is cash-strapped. This is a state which is close to bankruptcy. And this is a state that owes billions of dollars to Lebanon's private hospitals. One of those private hospitals is this one, AUH. But what we understand is that they are receiving the injured and treating those who are injured. But there are calls now for people to donate blood, all types of blood, in order to help those who were hurt. Many of them in their injuries as a result of falling glass. And as you can see, family members outside the hospital waiting for news about their loved ones. There was panic when, just moments after that massive explosion, I was not very far from AUH, this hospital, when it happened. And we are a few kilometers from Beirut port. And I felt the scale and the magnitude of this blast, which shook the ground, pushed us to the ground, and caused a lot of panic among residents who had no idea what had just happened. And the smoke, the color of the smoke, what I saw was orange. So maybe it makes, I'm not an expert, but now that the Lebanese Interior Minister is saying that this highly explosive ammonium nitrate was stored at Beirut port. So many questions are now going to be answered. What was this material doing at Beirut port? Why was it there? Who put it there? And But right now, the concern of many Lebanese, as you can see, is the condition of their loved ones who are now inside the emergency room. This is a city on edge, a country on edge, people on their nerves, really concerned and worried about what tomorrow will bring. Their livelihoods have been shattered by this explosion. Many shops have been damaged, goods on the floor for so many people. This is all that they had left in a country where there's a deep economic recession, in a country where businesses have been closing, people have been losing their jobs, and a healthcare system that is collapsing. This is one of the biggest hospitals in Lebanon, and a few weeks ago they laid off 850 nurses and administrators because they could not pay their salaries, because the government owes private hospitals billions of dollars. And that is why some hospitals have started to turn away patients because they don't have the supplies needed to help them. So now the priority now is to help and treat those who were injured in this blast. And I can tell you, the past, it's been 3 hours now since the explosion. I've seen ambulances come and go non-stop to the explosion site and taking the injured to hospitals across the capital.
All right, Zaina, many thanks. Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodder reporting live there from Beirut. Let's speak to Mohammed Khalifa, who was formerly Lebanon's health minister. He joins us now on the line from Beirut. Good to have you with us, sir. We saw there anxious relatives waiting outside the hospital for news of their dearest, their nearest, who've been injured in this blast. Hundreds of people injured today, and all of this is happening in the midst of a pandemic. Can the city's health services cope?
Hello. Good evening.
Hi, sir. Can Lebanon's health services cope?
Well, let me see. I've been listening. Actually, myself and my family narrowly escaped death. I am living next to university, and still I am a professor of surgery, and I was leading the. I left because of dehydration. We were treating hundreds of casualties along with my team, because still I am operating as a professor of surgery in the university. I think it is a disaster. I never seen something like that except when I was trained during the rough time of the Lebanese civil war. People there were rushing in hundreds, no place to accommodate. Our team is one of the biggest teams around the world, like 100 physicians and nurses. Barely we could absorb the shock. We managed to do in several waves, and really we have mortalities. We managed to save a lot of people, but things beyond any imagination. Injuries all over. Certain people, they have 7 or 8 injuries in different places. You can see enucleated eyes. You can see teared bodies. On top, we have to mix with everybody in the era of COVID, where you cannot do protection because people, you are between to get COVID or to save somebody else's life. I was sitting at my home. I told my family, shouted, take care, there is an earthquake. And immediately in my favorite place, everything collapsed and narrowly I escaped death. I left family and jumped to the hospital to save lives. We are in a very bad situation economically, medical supplies, shortage of everything. We managed to cope, but the devastation is beyond any description.
And tell us about the nature of the injuries you were seeing today.
People, they were sitting at homes. They're at home. Some, they have pressure injuries. They were traveling in their cars. Their heads, maybe they hit the wheel steer or they hit somewhere. People from pressure injuries because you can see their faces are swollen. Others, direct injuries due to glass injuries, fragments. People, Beirut is a very crowded city. If you are passing on a street and immediately tons of glasses collapses and hit you on the street from 20, 30 meter height, there are different sorts of impact injuries, high velocity, medium velocity, pressure injuries. acceleration injuries, deceleration injuries, what we describe it in medical terms. Yes, it is very bad. Wasn't unexpected. Everybody, I told, we saw there is an earthquake, and after like 20 seconds, we had the major explosion, and everybody, he felt that this was a special incident at his home. For example, I have some people, when they come with me from the hospital, they told me, oh, we escaped the explosion. I told them, what is the explosion, after they came to pick me up? They told me it's next door, downstairs. And imagine, it is in the port, and my house is 500 meters far from there. Everybody was under the impression that the explosion went on in his own home.
Given the stress that the healthcare system is under right now in Lebanon, can it cope with this? Will it be overwhelmed with the sheer number of injuries and casualties we've seen today?
Yes, I'm not afraid. The people who came in, they received excellent treatment. I'm afraid that in certain buildings, if some people, they were living alone, they have no families or no relatives to check up on them, I am afraid to miss those patients and to miss their opportunity of the treatment. Yes, we saved several people. They were about in the verge of cardiac arrest. Some people, 2 or 3, they came dead on arrival. Yes, we are coping. We use to such injuries. You know, Lebanon passed through a lot. We have good expertise, but definitely resources, the epidemic, adding the financial situation, adding the status of depression among the people. The mood is very depressive to start with. Without this, the mood is very low. People are not certain. Economically, they are depleted. They are living in poverty. I don't know what's happening for a country like Lebanon, a small country in Beirut, and as if you are witnessing what we call it slow death. Yeah. Before this explosion, people, they were going on from bad to worse.
Everyone we've spoken to today has said, "I've never felt anything like this, and I've experienced a lot of explosions in my life," as everyone in Beirut has. This will have traumatized a lot of people, won't it? I mean, it will have brought back a lot of bad memories for a lot of people there. Do you think that you'll be dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder after something like this today?
It's very simple. If you have your own phone, just I send you that name I'm talking to you. If it wasn't a matter of seconds, I could have been torn apart. If you see, when I came from the university, I've been operating all the day. I have a favorite place to sit. Usually, they bring me some water to hydrate and so on. And then my wife called me, "No, today you have to come here." Since we married 20 years ago, never she said like that. I stood up, and then I told, "Take care, the building is going to collapse, there's an earthquake." And in 2 seconds, like a 200 piece of a glass fall apart where I was sitting, it hit me tangentially. Myself, if you called me, with a matter of seconds, my phone couldn't answer you because I was dead. So if you ask me about the general situation, I'm telling you about myself. If you ask me why, I will tell you, look, I invested throughout my life. I'm a professor of surgery. I'm the first one who did liver transplantation in the Middle East. I am kaza kaza. Immediately I could have died. And I don't want to hear an excuse, with all my due respect, my friend, the Minister of Interior, that such material was imported, was deposited next to the pillows of our citizens. We know what is nitrate, whether it's being used or whatever it is. This is not the right place to store it. And this shouldn't be proud. Somebody should be ashamed of saying this to the public, that we are depositing whatever it is, even for manufacturing, even for farming, This is a material cannot be deposited in the most crowded area in the Middle East. I don't know what it is. I'm not talking politics. I'm not blaming everybody and anybody wants to blame me. But as simple as that.
It's really good to talk to you, sir. Many thanks indeed for being with us.
I'm sure there is a say, if somebody is idiot, it's better to shut down rather than talk and take any doubt.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us, sir. That's Mohammed Khalifa, formerly Lebanon's health minister. Let's go back to Al Jazeera's Zaina Hodder then, who's at one of Beirut's hospitals. Lebanon, of course, not only dealing with an economic crisis, Zaina, and the events of today, and this is happening in the middle of a pandemic, of course.
Yes. A rise in coronavirus cases really has strained the healthcare system in the country. We are outside one of the main hospitals in Beirut, the American University Hospital. Many injured have been taken here. They're inside the emergency ward. Their families are desperately awaiting news about their conditions. What we understand is that there are a number of people who are in critical condition. A lot of people were injured by this explosion. The health minister saying in their hundreds. It wasn't just people who were close to the site of the explosion at Beirut port who were either killed or injured. I must say that Lebanese security sources say at least 10 have so far been killed. But people kilometers and kilometers away were hurt by shattered glass. We're getting some reports that people were on their balconies and the balcony collapsed. There's glass across the city, damage across the city, destruction that people really have never seen before. And this is a country that is not immune to political violence and assassinations and bombings. They've seen it happen over the years. This is also a country that witnessed a 15-year civil war that ended in 1990. But the sheer force of this explosion, this massive blast, was felt kilometers and kilometers away. It pushed people to the ground. There was a lot of panic. So we are also getting reports that the Red Cross is appealing for blood donations. They're asking whoever is able to come to hospitals to donate blood because they're in desperate need of blood. A lot of the cases, people suffering from cuts, from shattered glass. And we talked about a healthcare system that is close to collapse. This is a private hospital, and the Lebanese government owes this hospital billions of dollars, and private hospitals have been threatened with closure in recent weeks because they do not have enough money to be able to treat everybody. And a lot of people who have lost their jobs over the years have lost their insurance as well. As you can see how tense the situation is, it's not clear. It seems this man wants to enter the emergency ward. It's not clear what problem he is facing, but you can imagine how people are tense, how people are on the edge. A lot of them don't know the well-being of their family members, and a lot of them also injured. I have covered many explosions in this country. Nothing like this. The destruction, you just drive through the streets of Beirut, central Beirut, as well as here in the Hamra district, shattered glass on the floor, damaged vehicles, stores, stores blown, the facade of the stores blown apart. It's very chaotic, Adrian, and all these people waiting for news of their loved ones. You can imagine how tense the situation is.
Yeah. And Zaina, before you moved to the hospital, you were for a couple of hours at the site of the explosion at the port. Just remind us of what you saw there. It was pretty chaotic there, wasn't it?
Yes, Adrian. First of all, it was kind of difficult to reach the site of the explosion as some roads closed, panic in the street. And once we got there, we were there for approximately 2 hours. And I can tell you that ambulances kept arriving non-stop, entering the Beirut ports and coming out a few minutes later with a casualty, either injured or dead in the back of the ambulance. And this went on for 2 hours. Fire trucks as well to put out the flames. The Lebanese, the head of one of Lebanon's security agencies, Major General Abbas Ibrahim, inspected the site of the explosion, and he told reporters that it appears that the blast was caused by highly explosive material that was stored at the warehouse, and it was stored in this warehouse warehouse for years, and it was confiscated material, something that the Interior Minister minutes later confirmed and reiterated that this was ammonium nitrate, and he was asking questions, what was it doing in the warehouse at Beirut port? And this is definitely going to be a question that many Lebanese are going to ask in the hours and days ahead, because this would point to negligence on the part of Lebanese authorities, who are already under a lot of criticism for running the economy into the ground, for failing to resolve Lebanon's worst economic crisis in decades, for failing to carry out reforms, to fix corruption in the state in order for Lebanon to be eligible for an IMF, International Monetary Fund, bailout plan. Lebanon is in need of billions of dollars. The state is close to bankruptcy. You can see ambulances continue to arrive. What we understand, some other hospitals are facing a lot, are under strain. Some of the victims, some of the casualties are being treated in parking lots outside. So this really just shows you how many crises this country is dealing with. Economic crisis, financial crisis, people's savings locked in banks, informal capital controls in place, a Lebanese lira, a local currency that has devalued, people's salaries really worth nothing, people's life savings also worth nothing. There's a scarcity in hard currency, which makes it very, very difficult to import. This is a country that is import dependent. It imports 80% of its needs. Now they are evacuating a casualty from an ambulance, as you can see, Adrian. It's a very, very, very difficult situation for Lebanese who are watching these scenes. They've seen scenes like this. This may have been an accident. They will definitely blame the authorities for negligence, but they have seen scenes like this over the years as a result of bombings and assassination attempts, and you can hear people screaming in the background. People are on the edge. And I'm sorry, it is quite chaotic here. We have to just move out of the way. Afwan, Ammo. So, Adrian, you can see they're still bringing in casualties to the hospital. Many people have been injured. As you can see, more medical staff arriving. Already there is a shortage in medical staff. In fact, tomorrow, the Association of Nurses was planning a strike and a sit-in to highlight the conditions that they're working in, because they get little pay and because they don't have enough staff. This hospital alone fired 850 nurses and administrators in the past few weeks. So a strike was called for. It's being called for tomorrow by nurses. Just shows you how the healthcare system is collapsing in this country. So this is going to be a very, very difficult night for the doctors and nurses who work in the different private and public hospitals across the country.
All right, Zaina, many thanks indeed. Zaina Hodder reporting live from the American University of Beirut. France says that it's ready to help Lebanon in any way that Lebanese authorities deem necessary. That's the French Foreign Minister tweeting a statement there. Also tweeting Iran's Foreign Minister Zarif, saying that Iran stands ready to help Lebanon in any way necessary following the blast in Beirut. Well, the UN says that it has no information yet on the cause of the explosion. A spokesman said that there are no reports of injuries among UN staff in Beirut.
We have no indication from our colleagues in Lebanon that there's been any harm to UN personnel or facilities. And certainly I hope that they're all okay, and I hope that the people of Lebanon are okay. They're very worrying signs of explosions. We do not have information about what has happened precisely, what has caused this, whether it's an accidental or man-made act. And so we will need that information to respond. Once we get that, we'll probably try to express something further. But at this stage, our thoughts are with the people of Lebanon, and we hope that whatever has happened, that the damage is limited, and that the safety of the Lebanese people will be ensured.
We've told you about how the blast in Beirut impacted upon homes that were several kilometres away from the site of the explosion. Earlier we spoke with reporter Anshul Vora, who is in Beirut, or lives in Beirut. This is her front room. She was watching TV at the time. See how powerful that blast was? Her home's badly damaged by the impact of the explosion. Anshul herself suffered minor injuries, and when we spoke to her several hours ago, she was clearly in shock. Here's how she described what happened to her.
We were just watching a show on Netflix, taking a break from work, and I heard a jet hovering in the sky. And because this has been happening for some time, I opened the window, glass door, and looked outside, and the entire building shook, and I was blown by it. I'm bleeding on my neck. I think it's glass on my neck and my ankle. I wouldn't say I'm seriously injured, but a lot of people around me on the street where I live in, which is called Jamese, a Christian-dominated area, a lot of people are bleeding. There's absolute chaos here. People cannot understand how to react to this situation. This country's already been grappling with so much. Earlier in the day, I was filing a story on how the price of bread has doubled. But how are these people going to deal with the situation now? Thankfully, my neighbor is okay. I don't know if there are any casualties yet or not, because I'm right under my house. But my entire house was blown apart. There's nothing that I could actually pick up from there other than my phone. Luckily, I found my phone and I found my passport. My husband is with me. We're on the street right now, also on the job, trying to film, trying to talk to people and understand what's happened. Other journalists now collecting at the same spot. We're outside the Red Cross. A lot of people trying to go in. I haven't yet managed to get to the building of Red Cross. I don't know whether it's been bombed or not. There's people around me bleeding everywhere. Complete chaos. I mean, one doesn't want to sort of talk about who's done this yet, but jets have been hovering above these skies over the last 2 months now. So complete chaos. Many were anticipating this, but it's just such a heartbreaking moment.
Let's speak once again to Habib Bata, who's a journalist and the founder of Beirut Report. He joins us now from the northern suburbs of Beirut near Antelias. Good to have you with us again, Habib. Just a few moments ago, I don't know whether you heard me tweet from France's foreign minister saying that France stands ready to help in any way that it can. This goes back to where the help that Lebanon needs is going to come from. And also that tweet from Iran's foreign minister Zarif also saying that Iran stands ready to help Lebanon. What are we to make of all of this?
I mean, we really hope so. We can use all the help we can get. As I said yesterday and months ago, this country has been suffering. But, there are a lot of promises and a lot of pledges, but most of the time they don't actually pan out. So hopefully there will be money. The French minister was in Beirut a few weeks ago, and he gave money. A lot of money was given to French schools in Lebanon. So again, they were very not really helpful for the government, and the government actually complained that France could have settled this over an email. So there's a lot of political posturing. Hopefully this tragedy will not be seen as a political one, like the government's economic collapse, and people will just give money just to help. But again, it's hard to imagine money without strings attached in a country like Lebanon, where that's precisely the reason why the country is in so much debt, is because it's borrowed so much money. And it's been propped up by so many foreign powers all these years. The country could have collapsed probably years and years ago, but constantly being propped up by different powers. So there's a skepticism, I think, when it comes to foreign aid to Lebanon. But at this time, hopefully it will be treated as a humanitarian crisis, like an earthquake or something, and people will just give money without asking questions. Obviously, the money should go to the people who need it. The hospitals in Lebanon really need money. The government owes the hospitals millions of dollars, as your doctor was mentioning. It's just incredible how hospitals continue to operate at a loss in many cases in Lebanon. People, the price of healthcare is also quite expensive. So, it's a very collapsing healthcare system, as Zaina mentioned. And there's a collapsing power grid in Lebanon. There's a collapsing water system in Lebanon. There's a collapsing garbage collection, waste management system in Lebanon. There's garbage piles all over the streets before this explosion happened. So there's so many things that are kind of colliding. And now we're hearing that there's toxic air as well due to this explosion, which could have been the gas that we've been hearing about. There was a red color to the smoke. There were fireworks, it looked like, within the explosion as well. So we don't know what kind of toxic elements. And Lebanon has a very high air pollution level because of the fact that there's no government electricity. So that everybody is running generators in their homes in Lebanon, which fills the air with diesel. So people are already inhaling fumes in this country and swimming in sewage in this country because the sewage system doesn't work. All of these European countries have pledged at one time in order to help Lebanon. These solutions are very short term. These are Band-Aids. Lebanon needs no more Band-Aids. It needs a serious reckoning. And I think that this is a reckoning for the system. Even if this was an accident, there's so many other accidents that are waiting to happen. People also are depressed and anxious. There have been a number of suicides in Lebanon due to the economic situation. This could drive some people over the edge.
Yeah.
We have to be careful with violence.
Habib, we heard from Abbas Ibrahim, General Security Chief, earlier, saying that this explosion was caused. I mean, it's still early days. There's got to be an official investigation, but the theory is at the moment that this explosive was caused by explosive material stored in a warehouse. Zaina Hoda was reporting that it's thought to be this material was ammonium nitrate, and that this material had been at this warehouse in the port for quite some time. Whose responsibility is that? What on earth was this stuff? And so much of it that it could do the kind of damage that we've seen today. What was it doing at the port in Beirut?
Well, some have suggested it could be fertilizer. It could have other chemical industries that use that kind of thing. But, safety precautions are notoriously not applied in Beirut, and we've seen other fires. We've seen factories catch on fire in the past. Maybe they weren't very explosive material, but we've seen massive fires in Lebanon in recent years. So it's not surprising, who was responsible. There'll be fingers pointed in different directions. There's the Ministry of Transport, there's the Port Authority, there's the Municipality of Beirut, there's the Ministry of Interior, the police. There's all kinds of different agencies that might have some kind of a safety claim there. But, one thing that's very interesting is that Lebanon is also one of the most densely populated countries in the world. It's somewhere on the top 10 list of most populated countries. So, there is a lack of space to put things in Lebanon as well. And this is related to the garbage crisis. There's no space for landfills, so the landfills are put in the sea. There could be no space for hazardous materials, no budget to store them in a bigger facility. I mean, there are really so many layers to this onion of responsibility when it comes to Lebanon. It's really hard, I think, to we want to point a finger. Some people want red meat. They want revenge, but it's often a very complicated mix of authorities that are overlapping that lead to these situations of just kind of winging it. I could just see them winging it and putting things in a warehouse. I see people wing it every day in this country on the roads. You almost get killed every time you drive on the roads in Lebanon because the police aren't really there to take care of the traffic management. So there are really so many dangers for the Lebanese citizen on a daily basis. People felt that they felt this blast at home. They felt this blast was in their home. I thought the building collapsed behind me. Many friends called me and said there's a bomb next to my house. It's really hard to kind of describe to you the force field, the wave of the shock wave that just kind of fell over all of us. And it's saying a lot for people living in Lebanon to say it's the worst explosion they've ever seen. For people living in Beirut, it says a lot. This is the most dangerous thing that they've felt. So there've been hundreds and thousands of bombs dropped on Beirut over the years. So that this actually stands out is quite amazing.
We're waiting for a statement from Prime Minister Hassan Diab. And we'll take that live here on Al Jazeera as and when that happens. The World Health Organization is expressing its concern over the implications of the disaster coming as it does in the midst of a pandemic. The Lebanese Red Cross says that more than 2,200 people were injured, Habib, in today's blast, and the numbers are likely to rise, as we saw from Zaina Hodder at the American University of Beirut. Casualties still arriving at hospital 3-4 hours after the explosion. What sort of strain at the moment is Lebanon's health system under at the moment?
You know, we have a very limited number of ICU beds in Lebanon, something in the hundreds. And the cases of COVID have gotten to a point where many of them are taking up those beds, and there aren't many beds left. And so, you know, it's like you're going through a crisis. You're going through a kind of a Pearl Harbor, and then you get hit again on top of that. So it's a double, triple, quadruple whammy in Lebanon, the number of things people are going through. And so these hospitals have been crying out for help on television for weeks and months now, saying that they don't have the PPE, they don't have the protective gear to treat coronavirus patients. They can't, you know, because the currency has devaluated so much, the cost of care is still expensive for Lebanese citizens, but it has no value. And when you run a hospital, you need to buy imported goods. We don't make the PPE, we don't make all those products here. So you're still having to buy goods with very little revenue coming in to pay for them. So this country is constantly living in debt, not just the government, the hospitals, the schools are in debt, people can't pay their tuition. There's so many areas where money is owed and owed and owed so many times over in this country. I mean, it's really a miracle that, you know, every day people survive in this country. And then you hit it with this. So, you know, the hospital that you're talking about, the American University Hospital, AUB Medical Center, it has just laid off something like 800 employees. And they brought in the military because they were afraid people would actually fight their bosses and destroy the building of the hospital. And so you have revolts in the hospitals before all of this happened, and you have an overloading of cases. The government is unable to control the coronavirus issue in Lebanon, although it has actually fared okay, but we're having a spike now because people aren't really social distancing and that kind of thing. But maybe this will shock people a bit more into doing that, knowing that there's really not much space left in a hospital if you need one right now.
Habib, great to talk to you. Many thanks indeed. For the moment, we may well be back with you. Within the last few moments, Lebanon's health minister has said that more than 30 people were killed in today's explosion, and that over 3,000 were injured. That death toll, though, is likely to rise over the coming hours and days. So more than 30 people killed in the explosion in Beirut, over 3,000 injured. Let's talk to Khalid Hamadi, who was a Lebanese army general and is now the managing director of Regional Forum for Consultancy Studies. He's on the line from Beirut. Good to have you with us, sir. Where were you when this explosion happened today?
In Beirut, maybe, and I was around, let's say, 1 kilometer from the explosion.
And what happened when the blast went off?
Really, it was a disaster. Really, it was a disaster. I walked from the Beirut airport to your offices here, for 1 kilometer on the broken glasses all over the streets, and where you see many injuries all over the street. They are waiting for cars, for ambulances to take them to the hospital. Everything was really, let you remember the last days of the civil war in Beirut. Yes, today during this explosion, I remember really the last days of the 80s of the last century.
It's funny, everyone we've spoken to this evening has said more or less the same thing, that this has brought back some very unpleasant feelings and memories. I mean, this really will have traumatized the city, won't it?
Say again, please.
This really will have traumatized the city, won't it?
I didn't hear you very well.
I was saying, sir, that this really will have traumatized people in Beirut.
Yes.
How do you think the city will react, the people will react? What will happen now?
And I think Lebanese people, all of the Lebanese people, they are disappointed from this government. And I think they did not wait for anything important, for anything serious from this government. I think the meeting of the Supreme Council of the defense will lead for nothing. There will be, for example, let's say a report. He will ask, for example, the authorities to start the investigations, and I think there will not be a serious investigations really that could present to the Lebanese people and to the international community a serious investigation and a serious result to what happened in the Beirut port, because many questions we propose all over what happened in Beirut airport. For example, the responsible authorities for the warehouses. Do they know about this high explosive materials in the warehouses, and why they are stored over there? What we see that the Lebanese authorities, even the security institution, they did not take any serious measures 3 or 4 hours after the explosion. We didn't see anything, any intervention from the Lebanese authorities. And we are asking, really, are they waiting for a permission from somebody to take over and to start working for the security of the Lebanese people and really to see what happened? It was something at this level of seriousness of danger. Really, we did not hear anything, any declaration from the Prime Minister, even from the Minister of the Interior. We didn't hear anything. For that, we are asking themselves, what kind of ammunition was stored in this warehouse, and is this part of the Iranian smart weapons, for example? And what happened in the warehouse? Is a part of the explosion that's taking place in Iran? And what will be the implication of this accident on Lebanon? He has become totally isolated.
So,
and many questions. So, is there an Israeli behind?
We're going to have to. So I'm going to have to stop you there. But many thanks indeed for being with us. I really appreciate your thoughts. France's President Emmanuel Macron has issued a statement saying, "I express my fraternal solidarity with the Lebanese after the explosion which caused so many victims and damage this evening in Beirut. France stands alongside Lebanon always. French aid and resources are being delivered to the site." So we know now that at least 30 people have been killed in this explosion today. Lebanese security officials say the blast was triggered by explosive materials stored in a warehouse in the port area of the city, which is at the heart of Beirut. The president has called an emergency meeting. The Prime Minister has called for a national day of mourning on Wednesday. Lauren Taylor will continue our coverage of the aftermath of the Beirut blast in just a few moments here on Al Jazeera. Stay with us.